Okay. Hello, everybody. It is Monday night. I have a very special guest for you. I'm really, really excited. We have not done a collaboration in golly, like 4 years.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited for you guys to meet this beautiful lady right here. She has so much wisdom and knowledge, especially for those of you who are working in the recovery field and the mental health field. And we get to hear a little bit of her story also. So TaTa-Nisha, you are a certified peer specialist for addictive disease and mental health,
Mhm.
right? And a trainer,
Yes, yes.
right? Can you tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about what you do with your training?
Sure. So, first of all, I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I have had the pleasure of attending so many trainings throughout the years that I've been working as a certified peer specialist in mental health and addiction. And what I've learned is that the behavioral health workforce is hard to work in. Just working in healthcare is hard. And over the years, I found myself helping a lot of people who were having challenges with navigating working in the field. And what I kept hearing over and over and over again was this feeling of lack of support, or just not understanding how to manage their emotions while doing the work. And I found myself coaching people. People call me all the time. What should I do? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Have you had this experience? And as a result of doing that for a few years, I started a company called Prevention with Intention, which is a professional development training and coaching company. The coaching component is really to help CPSs who are just really having challenges with navigating the workforce, but also looking for opportunities to improve their skill set. And so emotional intelligence is kind of like my pet peeve, and where I had to do a lot of learning because I realized that I was not emotionally intelligent when I started in this work, and that I really struggled with managing my emotions when things were difficult. And as a result of that, I started practicing some behaviors like asking myself specific questions about why I feel the way I feel, taking time to just sit and be still and ask myself some really hard questions and answer those questions honestly. Right. And what I found out in my own work was that I was lacking skills. I was insecure. I was hustling for my worth, which is a term by Brene Brown, which happens a lot when we start this work, where we are so happy to be working and doing something that we feel passionate about, only to find out that we don't necessarily know how to navigate that very well. Like we have employers who are not treating us well, and we're not treating ourselves well, and then we work in these toxic work environments, and we don't always last very long. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so if you can kind of hear it in the streets around about how the workforce for a certified peer specialist is just really hard, and that there's this gap and this need for, which is weird because we get certified so often. The trainings are every month just about. And so there's a lot of us out here, but there's a gap in the workforce. And why is that
Mm-hmm.
you know
Mm-hmm.
so I'm
I
curious
I
about
would
this.
guess because it is so, it's like working in frontline crisis all the time, and
Yeah.
there's trauma. Like I went to your emotional intelligence training and I was blown away. Like I was like, oh my goodness, this is so good. Like this is so helpful to me. It really helped me, and especially I was going through a, oh gosh, bad relationship at the time too. So I was like in the middle of a meltdown when I took your class, and it was
Uh-huh.
like it literally like totally like helped me. You have no idea how much it helped me because of course you didn't know what I was going through, but it was incredible. So like I feel like this is so important, like for everyone, but especially for people like who are working in our field.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's kind of depressing,
Mm-hmm.
working in our field. Like it has its good moments, but a
Right.
lot of it, right, like our empathy, because of like the things that we've been through, and then we're working with all these people with this trauma, and it's triggering our trauma, and it's
Mhm.
like, and then you have to just go home and just forget about it all.
Right, right. And that is, you can't forget. It comes back up
Hmm.
somewhere along the line. And you kind of have to at some point deal with it. And so I started talking about emotional intelligence because of the work that I had done and what I had noticed, being a supervisor in the field, also just working side by side with certified peer specialists. And a lot of us have levels of emotional intelligence that we haven't used, and a lot of us use it and still have challenges. So the coaching aspect of it is centered around just really kind of revisiting those things that they already know and reinforcing that support with, like a rap plan, for work, basically.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a tough field to work in. And I learned that if I don't sit with myself, if I don't ask myself the hard questions and answer it honestly, then I'm doing myself and the people that I serve a disservice.
Hmm. So, can we talk a little bit about your story, kind of how you your addiction story, how you came into recovery and everything?
Absolutely. So I'll be celebrating 14 years of sobriety
Nice.
in October. And I came into this program, into recovery many times, but this last time I lost custody of my children. I was homeless. I had family issues, a lot of the things that we all kind of deal with just in life. But as an alcoholic, I'm a person in long term recovery, but my pathway is 12 step. And so I started that journey this last time around, and I really dug in. I dug in and I decided that this is it for me. I'm not going to drink anymore. But I came into the program. I started going to meetings. I got really connected with folks in the program. And then I got hired as a CPS in I think my second year of sobriety, which is really early. You're just figuring out your own self barely. And so like 2 years is like that time frame where I started working as a cares at a small nonprofit for veterans. But I came into recovery as a result of my addiction and losing custody of my children. And when I lost custody of my children, I went to treatment, and I had this focus of, I just want to get my kids back. And that statement by itself is loaded, because as a parent, if you haven't had your kids for a really long time, you think you want your kids back. But when you're
Hmm.
early in recovery and you get them back, it is hard work. You hear me?
Hmm.
Hard work. One, because you have kids who have not had you, who are angry, who are confused, who are sad, I mean, my kids had all kinds of stuff going on with them when I first got them back. And as a parent, I really struggled with how to help them, because I was still trying to help myself, but I wanted them back. And so what I've learned is that you can want your kids all day long, but if you're in early recovery and you have your kids in a safe space and there's work you need to do on you, I'm going to strongly suggest that you give that time, right? But I understand why we do that, because naturally as parents, we want to be the person who raises our kids. And when someone else takes that responsibility, you're just kind of always wondering what you can do to get your kids back. So I focused on that, and that was kind of like the catalyst for me sticking and staying with my treatment. It wasn't the reason, because I learned early on that you got to want it for you, because if you want it for your family and you want it for your kids, that it may not work out, and I'm sure it works out for some, but for the most part it has to be for you. And so I came in with the idea of, I gotta do this for me, you know. So, I did a lot of things. I've been through a lot of things, but my recovery journey has awarded me a life that I never dreamed of. Is it still hard? Yes. Do I still have struggles? Yes. But I have tools and I have people, I have support. And the work that I do is very meaningful, and it adds value to the life of the people that I serve. But more importantly, it adds to my life as well. So I'm real grateful. I wasn't an awful person, at least in my opinion. But my addiction did get in the way of my growth and development. And so it took me a really long time to get to a better place with my recovery. But I'm there. I'm here. I'm still always have work to do. But I feel like my recovery journey started as a result of me desperately wanting my kids back.
Hmm. And we've seen, so many times where people, do get their kids back and then it was not the right time, and then you have this back and forth of it and it just adds more trauma. So I'm glad that you said that because it is so important. I mean, literally, like I just got my son back. Okay. I'll have 9 years in July and
Hmm.
he just came to move in with me in January. He just turned 20 and I'm
Hmm.
just like,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh-huh. I relate. My son
yeah.
is 26, 25 or 26, and I have twin girls who are 20. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's that age.
It's very challenging. I'm just
Yes.
like, and it's hard because I do have to deal with kind of like the way that he was raised, not by me,
Hmm.
by his grandparents that just were different, from me. And he was very blessed to be able to do a lot of things whenever he wanted, however many times he wanted, however much
Hmm.
money he wanted. And
Hmm.
now he comes in with me and I'm like, what? If you want another ginger ale, you better get a job.
Right, right.
you know?
Yeah, they're at the age now where I'm learning to have a more hands-off approach and wait for them to approach me. And I really struggle with that. I run into mommy mode and I want to fix it. And when they're in crisis and they call me with their stuff, I go into captain, save them. And what I've learned is that every time I run into a very volatile situation, I never get the whole story. And I come in and I jump in trying to fix something that I didn't create. And so I have learned now to just sit back, listen, and wait for them to ask me for feedback versus going into let me fix it. That is hard to do. My mind still
Hmm.
says, well, okay, well, what's the next step? What do you want to do, or what can I do, or could you do that, or think about this, or and I'm saying I still struggle with it. I'm just getting to the awareness that my approach had to change because I was jumping in stuff and it was stressing me out. I was losing sleep, So
Hmm.
now I allow them to come to me and then I wait for them to ask for help.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's definitely the key, because I feel like too with kids, like teenagers I should say, young adults, I tell them like what they should do, but unless it's their idea then it's not the right idea. So
Mhm.
that can be very, very frustrating. um but okay, let's give some education on what is emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. So when you learn to regulate your own emotions, so when we think about emotional intelligence, we think about self-awareness, we think about self-regulation, think about motivation, empathy, and social skills, right? And what I've learned is that, and emotional intelligence is really the ability to manage both your own emotions and understand the emotions of other people around you. And it takes learning to observe and be quiet to really be able to do that well. Because a lot of times we listen to respond. I mean, to listen to react versus
Mm-hmm.
respond. And response takes time to think about what a person has said, right? And so when you can understand your own emotions first, so an example is when I first started working in this field, I had a coworker who got on my nerves so bad, like it was bad, and the thoughts that I was having were not conducive to the type of environment I was in. And of course, it's my responsibility to take care of myself. And so, if I do things the way I used to do, I wouldn't have a job, right? But my coworker at that time got on my nerves so bad, and my stomach would start burning. And the second my stomach would start burning, the first thing I would want to do is cuss her out. Like, I want you to stop talking. I want you to go away, and I don't have anything nice to say, right? That was what was going on in my head. But the reality was this was my livelihood. And I don't act like that anymore. But you know how stuff is arrested? It doesn't really go away.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of stays under the surface, and then something can activate that, and then you can act out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so with emotional intelligence, I began to learn how to regulate my body. But first I had to learn how to identify, what is that feeling I'm having? Why am I having a headache? Why is my stomach burning? Why do I want to cry? My first job, literally, every time my supervisor called me in, I cried. Every piece of feedback he gave me, I cried emotionally. I'm not a crier. So that was like really, because I really wanted to do well, and to go into the office and to be told that everything I did was wrong, just broke me. Like, I was just broken up about it. And so to identify what those emotions are, I had to sit with what and ask myself the question, what is this? Why is this coming up? And I had to spend time with the thoughts that I was having along with what I'm feeling in my body. So you think about the ability to manage both your emotions and understand other people's emotions. Takes time. Like, there's a certain level of self-awareness that comes with that. There's a social skills that come with that, being able to recognize when someone is connecting or disconnecting, having empathy, what motivates people, what motivates you. So it's about you and the other person, which is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. I got to sit here and manage my own emotions. Now I got to observe yours and understand your emotions. That's a lot, right? But
Yeah.
practice. And when you start to practice that, then you start to be able to observe and see things. And then you know how to ask specific questions. So, emotional intelligence is really about self awareness. It's about how you regulate yourself, what motivates you, being able to listen to find out what motivates someone else. You know, we're really good at empathy as certified peer specialists, right? We
Mm-hmm.
understand, we can relate, we can identify. But you know, it is sometimes difficult for people who don't understand or don't have lived experience, which is why we are so valuable, right? And then the social skills is really about recognizing what is happening around you. Everybody's done this before, at least I think. You get asked a question, or you get asked to speak. Let's just say you get asked to speak, and you are talking. You're in a group. I notice this in group settings. I do lots of groups. And when you talk, if you're not paying attention to the room, you may miss cues that would help you identify if the room is relating, if they're checked out, if they're not paying attention, if they're uninterested. And so those social skills are super important, especially as certified peer specialists. You know, we walk into facilities and there are a lot of things happening.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a skill set that comes with how you understand what's happening around you socially. I know where the front door is, the back door is, and two exit doors. I know where the bathroom is. I know the lady who walked in had on a red shirt. You know, these are things that I'm aware of. When I'm in a room, I can tell when someone's nervous. I can tell when someone's leaning or shaking, or these are things that if you're not paying attention, you may not be aware of it, and you may miss an opportunity. So those things are the skills around emotional intelligence that if we fine tune those and work on those all the time, then we'll have a better opportunity in the workforce to not lose our shit. No disrespect to anyone,
Mm-hmm.
but I have lost my shit doing this work. I have been sick in
Mm-hmm.
this work. I have lost time in this work. I have uh, damaged relationships in this work. I have left jobs in this work. I have done all the things because I've learned how to now, but I still struggle even with the last job. I work at Grady right now. I'm working in a different field, but I definitely still do a lot of that CPS work, and I have to use those skills. These are transferable skills. These skills you can use anywhere. You can use them at home, you can use them with your kids, you can use them in your work, in your church, in your social group, anywhere. That, I mean, it's just a skill that if you understand it, if you take time to understand what emotional intelligence is, you're going to minimize the stress in the work that you do.
And so dealing with things, like say somebody's in like a really stressful situation. So I have a lot of people, I don't know if you can see the comments. I have a lot of people on my YouTube that are victims of like targeted stalking. And so they have high levels of PTSD and high levels of trauma from things. So how would a person with like a high level of like trauma, PTSD, like kind of like living in fear, how would they be able to regulate their emotions? Like what's a tool?
Well, one tool is to be able to sit with yourself and identify what you are feeling, right? Um, and that comes with language, right? Because sometimes, oh, I just don't feel good. It's not clear. Like, so I feel burning in my stomach. I feel tension in my neck. I feel ringing in my ears. I feel lightheaded. I'm so angry that I'm crying, right? Um, I am in a weird new space and I'm having anxiety, right? So first it's just having being self-aware, aware. Okay, this is what's happening in my body, and then knowing what those things mean, right? It's We use the word PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And a lot of times, if we don't really look at what that is and define it clearly, we sometimes we just use the word without real clear. And this is more for people who don't identify with PTSD. They think they
Mm-hmm.
know, but they don't know unless they talk to somebody that tells them, right? But the first thing to do is to just be self-aware. Okay, right now I'm feeling some burning in my ears. Oh, okay. What's going on here? A memory is popping up, right? And so once you are aware of what those feelings are with words that you know what they mean, then you can begin to understand how to self regulate. The first thing is to just be really self aware, because it's easy to say, I have PTSD, I have PTSD, right? But what does PTSD mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a clinical term for that. Oh, let me see. I'm sorry. Prayer, acceptance. Okay. And so, yes, acceptance is a good one. Prayer is a good one. And that just comes with being self-aware. I know that if I pray, that's going to help me get to a place where I can begin the self-regulation, because I got God. God is on my side. He on my
Mm-hmm.
team, he or she, whatever you call it. And so if I connect with God in prayer and I practice some acceptance, then I begin to be more self-aware about what's going on, and then I can begin to self-regulate, right? And so those are some of the things, some of the skills, and some of the things that I am just innately aware of when I'm. Sometimes I go places and a memory will pop up that was traumatic, or I'll watch a TV show or something that will activate that trauma that came up, or I'm in the hospital and I'm working with a patient and I remember something that happened when I went to the hospital, and it'll activate something in me, and I have to walk out and regulate and begin the self-regulation. So for me, self-regulation is centered around deep breathing, asking myself questions, telling myself the truth, calling someone who knows me very well and can say, well, TaTa-Nisha, right now, you may be experiencing this. This is not the end. This is just where you are right now. So let's figure out how to get you outside of the PTSD zone, and what can you do? And a lot of that comes with therapy, that comes with learning when those things pop up. What are the skills and what are the things I can do to help me get to a place where I'm not in that traumatic experience again? I hope that was helpful.
Yes, no, it was very clear, and I just wanted to give like a example for the people who maybe don't understand like our lingo,
Okay,
who don't work in the field. You know what I mean?
gotcha.
So the I feel like your coaching service like is so important because what I've noticed in our field is that there is a super lack of care for our people who are working in treatment or
Mhm,
organizations or nonprofits, and because of the clients that we deal with, the
mhm,
peers that we deal with,
mhm,
I feel like we kind of put ourselves on the back burner, and that is I've just seen that affecting our community a lot
mhm,
in the
mhm,
last year or two.
mhm. Repeat that question. I'm sorry.
So like just with what you teach
Okay, in
and
the
your
coach.
coaching services, yeah,
Mhm,
I feel like it's really necessary because of the lack of care that
mhm,
we give ourselves as peers who
mhm,
run facilities or work in facilities or whatever it is that you're doing. Like I feel like we get so stretched so thin and
mhm,
have so much on us.
mhm,
Like what do you think would be like a good solution
mhm.
to 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 come against that so that we don't have coaches, going back out, and coaches that are, because they just get spread so thin, they don't even realize that they're going back into these patterns and things like
Right,
that.
right. So self-care, 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 right? Part of our work is we tend to sometimes overcompensate and feel like we have to do everything. And in a lot of spaces, we do. We work 2 and 3 positions because there's this lack of workforce, which it shouldn't be because there's so many of us, but it is. But with the coaching piece, like coaches have coaches, right? And we are coaches. It's just like therapists need therapy, coaches need
Mm-hmm.
coaching, right? And it's so, you know how people have empathy and can sympathize with us when we come in to work with them because we have lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
In the behavioral health world, I have a lot of experience. So on the coaching aspect, that and on the business side and on the service side, so I've participated in, been a part of, and I've worked on the service side. And so how we take care of ourselves is super important. And coaching is an aspect of self-care, right? If you're a new CPS, and let me just put this out. If you are a new CPS and you are really trying to figure out if you want to enter this field, coaching with me would greatly benefit you. One, because you won't waste a lot of time. One, because I do bite-sized coaching, and you there's so much we don't know when we start, right? But as a person who's done this work for a really long time, the coaching piece can help save you from the stressors of things you don't know, right? And not to say that I know everything, but I know a lot about
Mm-hmm.
this field and this work. And so it's like when people go to fill out the application to become a certified peer specialist, you know how detailed and all of the information that they ask for, but they also ask that you have a specific set of skills before you even apply. And if you don't take the time to really learn, read, and understand what they're asking you to do, then you will waste a lot of time. So for example, if you read the application process from top to bottom more than 2 times, and you look at the frequently asked questions, you won't spend so much time calling around asking people. You won't spend so much time trying to figure it out on your own and wasting time. And so the coaching aspect for new CPSs is to help you get ready for the field. And for those of us who have been working in the field for a really long time and just need someone to process through stuff with, right? And we do a plan. There's a plan that comes with it, and it's just like any other plan, where you step it out. You write the steps about what you want and how you want to see it, and then you have someone to help you be accountable for that thing you want to do, and also help you navigate difficult situations at work. It's one thing to call your best friend and tell them all about it, and they don't have no feedback that they can give you, but yeah, girl,
Mm-hmm.
you're right, you know, or
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? It's like or they co-sign stuff, or they don't really understand or know what they should be telling you, but they just tell you what they want to tell you, right? Having a coach who has years of experience can help minimize some of the stressors that come with trying to become a CPS, but more importantly, managing the stressors of the work that we do.
And Miss Glow, CPS is a certified peer specialist for addictive disease. It's a recovery coach. So, not to be confused with CPS as in defects.
Oh, thank you for clearing that up.
I just wanted to make sure they knew where we were at.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So, do you think that recovery coaches are in crisis for this, or are not in crisis, but like in need? Like, actually, I want to say like in like a crisis need for these kind of services.
Absolutely. When I tell you that this work will make you sick just from secondary trauma, just from the lack of taking care of ourselves, eating right, drinking, staying hydrated, getting the proper rest, saying no instead of saying yes all the time, volunteering and raising our hand for everything because we're just so desperate to be seen, heard, and valued, right? And that's okay. But when it becomes to the detriment of you and the organization that you work for, you know, it becomes this thing. Yes, there is a big need to get people to see the value of it and be willing to pay for it is a hard sell. And the reason why is because you have to see the value in having a coach. All these multi-million-dollar coaches have coaches, right? And everyone that I've talked to, when I started doing this work, I was just helping people just because they pulled me, they asked me a question, they were under a lot of distress. I saw that and wanted to be a support. And I just kind of jumped in. And so it's crisis mode, one, because if you can't stay in a position for a really long time, it could be a toxic work environment, but it could also be you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have someone who can see you, not judge you, but ask you specific questions to help you get clear about what you're doing. Because we come in and we say we want to help people, Jamie. And here's the thing, this is a thing. If you're not specific about what kind of help you want to provide, you will get burnt out because they will
Mm-hmm.
ask you to do it all and you will do it all and you won't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
Or your quality of life will be so bad that you will wish you weren't working, but you do it because you have to survive, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that if if you can see the value in coaching, I promise you it is going to add value, but you have to be willing to pay for it, right? I work a full-time job, I train, I coach, and so my time is valuable. And so I want people to understand that their investment is for the betterment of their life and the work that they do, and to understand that as a certified peer specialist, there are so many ebbs and flows in what we do that you have to be consistent with how you take care of yourself so that you don't end up in being sick or in so much distress that you are not giving good quality work. And I've done all those things. So when I tell you I know what I'm talking about, it is super important to understand that. And everybody can't afford to do it. And every now and then I have some folks who will donate to offer free coaching sessions for folks. And so I definitely don't mind doing that. But when you are working, if you can see the value for yourself and be willing to pay for the service, I can guarantee you that it will greatly improve your work life.
And I think it's so much better than a therapist, because a therapist can't really give you like the directional feedback, I feel like, that a
Mhm.
coach can give you.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like a lot of our recovery coaches don't realize, maybe not that they don't realize that they're in need, but they don't realize how dangerous of a place it is when they get to that point
Mhm.
that they need that coaching.
And so what I'd like to say to the audience right now is it's almost like, you know how you can't pour from an empty cup. And when you try to pour from an empty cup, you just, and I'm trying to use another analogy. It's kind of like bleeding all over people, right? Where you're just dropping off toxic behaviors everywhere, and nobody wants to work with you, nobody wants to talk to you, people avoid you. Your supervisors don't necessarily, they kind of deal with you just because they have to, because they have a workforce shortage. But also, if you don't take the time for yourself, even if you don't coach with me, coach somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get some type of coaching, because especially from folks who are already working in the field, because they can give you insight, right? They can give you
Mm-hmm.
insight. And not to say that everything a person gives you is incorrect or correct or incorrect, but you, as the person who's being coached, will become aware over time of what your defects are and how you can work on them. Because a lot of times it's not them, it's us.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed about me, and I noticed this in the last few years, is that I got to stop wanting it more than people want it for themselves. And I've heard it enough. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean organizations. I don't necessarily just mean people. I mean, you go to a job and they're not operating the way you think they should operate. That's not your business.
Mm-hmm.
Your business is
Right.
to go in there and do the job that they provide. They provide it to you, whether it's done in order or not. And I had to learn to not try to fix people's problems. Organization,
Mm-hmm.
right? That if they ask me for support and feedback and it falls within the scope of my job description, then I'm more than happy to do it, right? And I'm even willing to go outside of my job description a little bit, but there has to be some compensation or some acknowledgement or some type of support for the work that I'm doing, right? So I'm very authentic. I show up 100% who I am. I could not have done that in 2 years, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I just said, I want to help people. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't specific, and they wore me out. And that goes back to self awareness. And I'll say that over and over: sitting with yourself, telling yourself the truth, and then asking 3 people. And if you get 3 people telling you the same thing, that's your work. That's your work. And so with the coaching piece, it's more about, I know somebody. I used to call people all the time. And can you help me? Can you tell me what this is or how to figure this out? And after doing that for so long, someone said, you should be getting paid to do this. And I was like, you know what? I think I will. Took me a couple more years, and before I really got into it and was like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. And so yeah, it's one of those things where we have to ask ourselves really hard questions and tell the truth, and then have people that we hold in high regard, you know. And that was a big lesson my kids taught me. We think respect means do what I say. That's not what it means. And my kids taught me that, because I asked them. They were all little kids. I used to have these family meetings. They make fun of me about it now. And and they weren't doing what I wanted them to do, and I was like, you don't respect me. And I'm a big stickler for looking up words. And I was so frustrated with my kids. I was like, we're going to look this word up right now. And when I looked it up and I saw hold in high regard, and that was the moment that I realized my kids don't respect me. And I hadn't earned their respect. Really, briefly? That's funny. Okay. yes, they didn't hold me in high regard. One, because I had not been with them for many years. So they were dealing with their own PTSD, their own trauma, their own hurt, their own confusion, and respect was not on their list because one, they didn't know what it meant. And so that was a big game changer for me. What can I do to get my kids to see me and hold me in high regard? Do esteemable things. And not the things that I'm supposed to do as a parent, like provide them with food and shelter. There are things on an emotional level, that kids need, right? And if you don't know how to do that, they don't respect you, right? If you say don't scream at me, but every time you talk to them, you're screaming at them, they don't respect you. And I learned that the hard way. And I mean, I beat my head up against a brick wall because I kept trying to get them to respect me, to do what I said. And that's not what it means. And so I had to start doing esteemable things with my children. And it wasn't buy them things. I did all the things that we do as parents who guilty parents.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That wore me
Oh,
out.
yeah.
And then I didn't have the money to buy them everything that they wanted. And I wasn't trying to, but the things like listening to them when they are having a difficult time and saying, I understand and I'm sorry that happened. And how can I support you? Or just being okay with they just want to talk about it and they don't want feedback. As a parent, we think we're supposed to tell them everything. Some of that stuff they're going to have to learn out in the world. We can offer them basic suggestions. We could say, well, why don't you try taking a couple of deep breaths versus just throwing things across the room, which I have twins. And so they would fight and they would cuss each other out and push each other and do all the things. And I just was like, okay, how do I teach my kids how to not be angry, outwardly angry? And I had to learn how to do that with them so that they could see me practice it. And so now they come to me when they're having a difficult time and they know that I'm going to respect what they're going through. I'm not going to judge them. I used to do that. That is crazy what you just did. I don't agree with that. That's not what they're asking for. They're asking to be seen, heard, and valued just the way we are. And even if we don't, my daughter wears white eyebrows, literally like bleach blonde eyebrows. I hate it. I don't like it. For her, it works. In her life, it works. But for me, you're representing us as a family. And so you're embarrassing me. That was what I was internalizing. But she wasn't embarrassing me. She was being herself. And I kept saying, I want you to be you. I want you to be who you are. And then every time they would do something that was against what I thought they should be, or that I thought was going to negatively affect me as a parent, I didn't like it. And so I had to learn to be available to my children the way I want to be someone to be available to me. And that was that part of being a parent that things started to shift in our relationships. To now they will come to me even when things aren't bad, and they will tell me I'm having a good day, or look what great thing happened to me. I have one daughter who's still not quite as comfortable with telling me stuff because I will blurt out something crazy and be like, and it will hurt her feelings. And I'm a Leo by nature, so I say all the things. But she has become well adjusted because I gave her space by saying, look, I'm sorry that I did that. And I'm going to listen today. And I'm not going to say a word unless you ask for feedback. And then I'm going to hug you and I'm going to let you go. And that changed a lot for us as a family.
That's some wisdom for sure. And that takes so much practice and patience because you just want to
fix it. I mean, we're born to do that. Like our role as a parent, but the way we were taught to be parents, it varies from place to place. And I know in my family growing up as a kid, my mom was not affectionate. She didn't do hugs. She didn't ask me how I was doing. She didn't want me to lay in her bed, like that connection piece that people need. I didn't get that. So I had to learn how to do that with my kids. And so part of that work has compelled me to continue to talk about early recovery, becoming a certified peer specialist, learning how to manage your emotions, being emotionally intelligent, being self-aware, to the point where my quality of life has improved greatly in my work life and in my home life and in my personal life, as a result of that work. So I just keep doing it.
Definitely gives you peace of mind, it
Yes,
sounds like.
yes,
Yes.
peace. I do. On my whiteboard, I mean, my chalkboard, right when you walk in my door, I say, "Welcome, peace lives here." I love my home. It's not a lot, but it is home, and I have peace. So yes.
Very important. Very important.
Hmm.
Um, so for so clearly you can coach parents as well as CPSs.
Yes.
Um, is there any other like aspect of business that you think would benefit from, that maybe is not in our field, that you think would benefit from your coaching services?
Anyone can benefit from my coaching services. Like, it is, I've worked in all kinds of fields. I mean, I'm 52 years old. I've done all kinds of things. I've been a truck driver. I have worked in construction. I've worked
Wow.
as a caregiver. I've worked as a lube tech in a mechanic shop. I've done a lot of things. So I have a lot of life experience. And if I don't know something, then I can't coach you. I'm not going to tell you I can't. Yes, truck
Truck
driver.
driver.
Yes, yes. And I don't mean the 18-wheeler trucks. I'm a Class B CDL driver. So yeah.
Nice.
Hmm.
Nice. Very nice. Well, that is awesome. Can we talk about just one thing that you hit on a couple times? You talked about the workforce,
Yes.
about having a lack in the workforce. What do you think do you think that is from too many organizations and not enough peers, or peers going out into different fields, or what do you think what is that from?
I think there's so much I think about that. Um, but honestly, I think that we have enough people to work in the field. It is just really hard to do. We have toxic work environments, we have broken systems, we have siloed systems, we have disconnected uh, groups of people that work separately. Um, yes, I can. I absolutely can. Yes, I used to hang sheetrock. Anyway,
Oh no.
so yes, the workforce. Yeah, when you're out here trying to survive, you do what you got to do. And so yes, I have done quite demo is my favorite, Jeremy. I like to tear up stuff. So I wasn't skilled. I was more of that person who just helps the people who have the skills. But I picked up some skills along the way. So I try to fix everything in my house before I call somebody. Anyway.
There you go.
Anyway, so I think with workforce, I think it's a lot of things, but um, it's hard to work in this field if you haven't taken care of yourself well, right? And so we walk into these environments and there's this lack of skills. We get 2 weeks, if not 7 days of training, and it gives you basic skills. And those manuals are loaded with all kinds of stuff, right? And if you don't read those manuals and use those manuals in your work, then you will lose some of that skill or the things that you learned while you were in your training. And don't let years go by or months go by where you haven't used it. But I think the workforce shortage can be toxic work environments, organizations who are not really super connected to what we do, or they don't see the value in it. And these are my personal opinions. They
Mhm.
are not from any organization other than me, Prevention with
Right.
Intention. So I want to make that clear. And I think that the workforce shortage is directly related to In the rural areas, it's just not a lot of resources. And so there may not be a lot of space unless it's an RCO, or you work in a hospital that's in that area, in a rural area. There might not be a lot of work there. But in the cities, it's just a lot of difficult situations to have to work through. And if you don't know how to take care of yourself, you won't last. But I think we have enough people. I think that everybody who is certified, a lot of times they don't realize how difficult it is and they don't stay. And so there's some work that can be done as a coach to help people who are considering it. And I do $40, 30 minutes. You can ask all the questions you want within that 30 minutes, and you can get information that will help you understand what you're about to walk into. If you want more time, you just book another session and we could talk about it. But I feel like it's just a systemic issue across the country. I don't think it's just Georgia. I think that everybody who is certified is not equipped to do the work. And I'll be the first to tell you I was one of those people, right? I had to learn the hard way. So I think it's a combination of just how we came into this work, the lack of value that is placed on how we are in those systems. A lot of organizations were just told they had to have a CPS without any concern for whether they wanted it or not. We've been talking about this for years. And then I think organizations have done a good job of explaining what a CPS does. It's not hard to understand, but for some reason we get into these organizations and they seem to think they don't understand what we do. And then there's that other underlying piece that I think too is like, and I'm gonna just say it, you're an ex-drug addict, you're ex-alcoholic, you're ex-whatever, and you shouldn't be here. Sometimes we're just not wanted.
Stigma.
Still. There's still a lot of stigma. And then people who work in these big organizations don't necessarily take the time to understand what a CPS is. And so when they come in contact with them, they're like, so what do you do? And if we don't know how to articulate that well, then they will share information out that is incorrect. I think we have a lot of unemotionally intelligent people. We have people who have a lot of sickness within them and they want to desperately help, but they are not ready. And there are lots of things you could do to get ready besides fill out an application. So I'm gonna just go ahead and say that, like, there's more to it. And there's some work that we can do to get us prepared to understand what we're about to walk into. So if you're looking to enter this field and you really want to understand some basic things, then go to my website at preventionwithintention.com and book your 30-minute coaching session and we can talk about it.
Thank you. I'm with you all in there. I'm with you.
And I'm thinking, I'm losing my words in terms of like, and I'm pretty sure I'll think about this again. I'll probably send you an email about, okay, so these are some of the things I'm specific. It's kind of leaving me right now in terms of workforce, but I think it's enough of us out here. I just don't think that everybody's equipped to do the work. But they keep,
right.
offering the training. So if there's 40, you might get 10 people. You might get 5 people out of that 40 who are really ready and have done a lot of that emotional work that needs to be done before they enter the field, but sometimes not.
Yeah. Maybe adding it into, the beginning, like with the ROSC, training or something,
Right. And there's a piece there that they talk about kids in my front yard who I'm sure they talk about it in the ROSC training a little bit, but it needs to be a deep dive. It really does need to be a deep dive. And I encourage organizations who are having challenges with their teams and their staff, and this is not just for CPSs, but to hire me for training. I do extensive emotional intelligence trainings. I can do 1 day, 1 hour, 4 hours. I can do full day, half day, 1 hour. in sessions. I really want to be on the forefront of when people get hired to offer the service for them before they get hired or in their hiring process. I'm currently working on a package to help organizations prepare CPSs or behavioral health workers to work for their organization, but get that early training around emotional intelligence and how to manage yourself while you're doing the work.
Even just high stress organizations,
Yes.
like any like high
Any.
stress.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm even thinking like finance. You know what I mean? People who are like
Yes.
up in finance and things like that. Those are like high stress. Things with deadlines, advertising, marketing. Where you have like deadlines on things,
Mhm.
like that is, like having you come in, even if you came in once a quarter to do
Yes.
a, maybe
Mhm.
like a
A
four
refresher.
hour kind of check in and things. And then you could be able to tell the supervisors, like, or the boss is like, hey, this is what I'm seeing,
Mhm.
this is what you need to do. Because you got to keep your team, in good health, mental
Right.
health and physical. Because if it starts in the mental, it's going to the physical.
Right. And that
Um,
morale, that employee
mm-hmm,
morale, because
right.
once you start to become accountable for your own behavior, then you take a lot of stress off of you just by doing that alone.
Yes.
Um, so
Yes.
that's it. That you don't have to pay for that advice. That is for you. It's like if we get to a place where we really, and I'll keep saying this over and over, is really ask us. I mean, my whole thing was I was angry at people that I was working with because I was insecure. And when you spend more time looking at the problems outside of you, and they're out there and they're not going anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
then you miss an opportunity to do your own work.
Yes. Yes. And that is priceless. That is so worthwhile
I
to
spent
do that
years
work.
blaming organizations for being disorganized, for not having the tools, for not being supportive when I had a goal or something I wanted to work on. And organizations, yes, thank you, Jeremy. Yes, because that's real. But I spent more time looking at why organizations were so messed up and blaming them and not looking at me. And I lost a lot of time because of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not going to change because I said it. Some organizations will receive feedback and they will try to work on something, but if it's not in writing, you know the drill. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. But if you address things by just complaining and you know being and moaning and all the things and complaining to everybody and every opportunity, that's all you do is complain, then you're gonna miss an opportunity to help yourself because it really boils down to you.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, my
Absolutely.
boss is not the greatest person in the world. I'm not talking about my direct boss. I'm just saying in general. And they have things that they are lacking, skills that they are lacking, things that they don't do right, right? But they are in that position and there is nothing I can do about it, right? And so I have to figure out how to accept that my role and my job is this particular job description right here, and all of that other stuff has nothing to do with me. Even though I work in an organization and it does, at the end of the day, I only have power over what I do. That's it. And so once I began to do that work and stop looking out and pointing the finger at, you don't know how to do it and you ain't doing it right. It's so much I don't do right.
Mm-hmm.
So much I
Mm-hmm.
don't do right. And so, and I don't mean like, I mean in terms of like my job, like there are things that I've done that I wasn't correct on. Like, you know how we do when we fill out our
Yep.
applications and we say we know how to do PowerPoint, Excel, and all the things, and we say we proficient, but we really are beginners or
Yeah.
we're used it because we want that job so bad. And then we get the
Yep.
job and the boss says, I need you to do this report and I need you to report it out on this day, but you don't know how to do it, and you spend 4 hours trying to figure it out because you lied on your application. Yes.
Yes.
And so like that kind of stress I put on myself because I didn't take accountability for the fact that I lacked skills. And then I want to blame my supervisor because he's put me under this pressure to get it done and I can't do it. but I blame him instead of looking at the part I play. So, that part I've just learned how to do better and better. I get better and better. I'm not perfect. I still have thoughts and I still, make mistakes. But now I have a better accountability process. Even if I mess up, I have given myself permission to assess myself, to tell myself the truth, to write it down, and to try to learn from what I did and not do it again. And I give myself grace because there are things I just don't know how to do. And I give myself permission to learn it. But I also have to want to learn it.
And want to be held accountable by someone else.
Exactly. Right. Because if I don't know how to do it and my supervisor is waiting for something that I need to give her because her supervisor is waiting on her to give it to her. You see what I mean? It has a trickle down effect. And so it doesn't just affect me. It affects everybody that I work with, especially if that report is encompassing everybody's work. Right. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm going to just go ahead and tell you right now, don't lie in your application. Just tell me I'm not proficient. I'm a beginner. Yes. And then go learn the skill. So when you do get the job, you're ready. Or at least you have some knowledge, you know what I mean, of some basic things, right? And I'm transparent about that because I have wasted so much time trying to figure something out that I said I knew how to do in a job because I wanted that job so bad. Or I needed that job so bad. So sometimes we need it and sometimes we want it. And sometimes we do what we got to do to get it. And then when we get it, we mess it up.
Yep. So true. So true. Wow. Well, that was amazing. That was a lot of wisdom. That was a lot of direction. I feel like I gleaned a lot off of that. I actually had that tonight. Somebody who was trying to offer me a job with like marketing with a specific thing, and I was like, I have no idea what that no idea. Yeah, you would have to teach me. I don't know, like, well, how about this aspect? And I'm like, I don't know anything. If that's not my that's like not my jam, so like being able to, but I wanted so bad to be like, oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Let me Google search real quick. How do you do this? So I can get this promotion, but I was like, no, for real though, I don't.
Look, this position I'm working in right now, when I was in the interview, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I am not proficient in that area. And it felt good to be able to say that. And so there's grace given. And now I can take a little bit of time in my workday to study a little bit so that I can do a better job with the work that I'm doing. And so now I don't have the stressor of trying to do something with the expectation that they think I should just get it done because I know how to do it. Right. So I've eliminated the stressor because I didn't tell that. I told them the truth that I was not proficient. I'm more proficient now than I've ever been. Let's just say that.
Many lessons learned.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being such an amazing guest. Preventionwithintention.com.
Yes. Preventionwithintention.com. I do trainings for organizations and I do coaching for individuals. I work with organizations around coaching their teams and working with their teams throughout the hiring process, and help them with different milestones in their employment. So you can go to my website. You can look at all of the different training opportunities that are there. I do assessments for organizations, so you won't get pricing on that. I do public speaking engagements. I also am CRIM certified, which is community resilience. I'm a trainer for community resilience. So doing that kind of training with organizations is something that I'm really looking forward to because it does help you manage and regulate your emotions. It is one of those things that is very, very important. And I'm grateful that I've had an opportunity to learn how to do that training, and now I can teach it. So if anyone's interested in community resilience training, you can go look at the website for community resilience training. And then if you're interested, just call and book a free consultation with me on my website.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We're going to end the stream here. Um, don't leave out truck driving.
Okay. Truck
Jeremy, you
driving.
tripping.
Thank
This
you,
man.
Jeremy.
Okay. Thank you for an
Yeah, don't sell
interactive
yourself
audience.
short. Thanks for
That's
coming.
right. Awesome.